Hey everybody, grab a beverage, put your feet up. Let me talk to you for a minute. Chad Kelly here. Hope everybody's doing well, staying warm in this long drawn out January. Just wanted to take a minute and sit down and tell you what I was going to be throwing for this 2019 season. Start right down here with my drivers. First one I've got for you is Lucid Freedom. To be honest, doesn't really come out of the bag all that often, but when it does, typically I'm looking at throwing a backhand roller, or if I need something that is going to hold a long turn for me, I can put this on a pretty significant hyzer. It'll stand up and then it just keeps turning. I never have a problem with it, stabling up too much and fading back or finishing straight. It'll just keep turning on me. So kind of what I have that in there for. Here I've got a VIP King from Westside Discs. The King I like typically as my driver for nice calm conditions when I really want to crank on something and get as much glide out of it as I can. I'm still playing with it a little bit. It's been in my bag for a while, but I find myself getting a little bit over on it sometimes, and it'll turn a little bit more than what I'd want. And I definitely can't put it into any kind of a headwind, but it's still a great disc for me. Most of the time I get a hold of it pretty good, put just a little bit, a little hyzer on it, pops up nice and flat, gets some solid turn, and then it'll finish pretty straight. Doesn't really come back to the left too much, maybe a little bit there at the end, but it's kind of what I'm looking at there. Next in line is a Lucid Metallic Sheriff. I love these things. This is my go-to driver. Any kind of a just straight shot, this is what I'm reaching for when I'm wanting to get the most distance out of something. Release it flat, flies nice and straight, get a little bit of turn out of it, just fades right back into the middle. It's real reliable for me. I really love these Sheriffs and the Lucid Metallic. If you got one, go up to the next disc here. Got a Opto Scythe. This disc is probably one of my most used discs. I'll reach for this if I'm looking at a forehand. I can really get behind it and it just flies nice and straight. Maybe a little bit of turn, some of that obviously depend on the wind a little bit, but it goes nice and straight, solid fade at the end. I always know what this thing's going to do. If I've got a headwind and I'm looking to throw a backhand, I'll also pull out the Scythe. Really, it's one of my favorite discs. I started throwing it, and it just keeps impressing me more and more, as I throw it. Next in line here, I've got a Hybrid Defender. The Defender is a little bit more stable for me than the Scythe is, and typically what I'm using the Defender, it's similar in line to what the Scythe is, but I'll be able to put a little bit more of an anhyzer line on it when I flick, and I can really get some solid distance out of these Defenders. I get a little bit of an anti-flex out of it. Got to give it room to work, but it's just fantastic. I've been able to put these around 400. My best throw with them on a flick is about 418, I think, somewhere in there. Oddly enough, I can get more distance with my flick in this Defender than I can with anything in a backhand, but still working on that too. So Next in line, Lucid Enforcer. Obviously, got the sweet gold hollow, truly unique Trilogy Guy stamp on there. The Enforcer, obviously it's beefy. It usually only comes out of the bag if there's a lot of wind, or if I'm really looking to flex out a forehand, something like that. Really something that, again, is kind of a utility driver for me, but it's something that I can rely on, especially in a strong wind. It's kind of why I keep it in there. Next up, we're going to be getting into my fairway drivers. First one I've got here, just got these. Got a hybrid Ati from Westside. I love the Ati. It's just a fantastic disc. It's super, super overstable for me. Gets out there. I don't have to worry about it turning at all. I know it's going to get out there straight and then fade hard. And I can control the angles with it, get some nice flare skips around some corners. It's a great forehand disc for me. I'll use it a lot on up shots from about, I'd say, around 150 or so, 200 feet, that I really need to come into the right. I'm almost always reaching for this Ati. Great disc. Next in line here is a hybrid Getaway. Another truly unique stamp on there. The Getaway has quickly become probably the most reached for disc in my bag. A lot of the holes in the Kansas City area, you don't really need to get super, super long distance, especially if you're trying to play for a placement shot. The Getaway I can get solid distance out of. I always know it's gonna fade in nice and smooth, not a real hard dump or anything. It's gonna fade in. Doesn't get a lot of big skips for me typically. I can get it to turn a little bit. It's a little bit shorter Sheriff for me, really. It's a little bit more overstable than that, but it fits in there really nice. I will flick this every now and then. Can't put nearly as much behind it, but it's nice. I've got a shorter hole or one that I've got to make sure I control it a little bit better. I can just put a nice smooth forehand on it. It'll turn a little bit and then it'll give me a nice solid fade. So that's a great disc. The next one I've got here is a Fusion Convict. The Fusion Convict, I got it in here. It's just a dead straight fairway driver for me. I'll throw it off the tee a lot. It comes out of my hand, and I'll get a little turn out of it, and then it'll fade right back in. If I put a little bit of an anhyzer on it, it'll hold that turn, and then just stable up at the end and finish straight. Hyzer, it holds a nice line, just finish in there to the left for me. It's a great disc when I'm trying to, not a real tight fairway, but when I want something that I know I can put out there, give me a night. I don't have to have a lot of room for the Convict to work, but I know I can get it to move a little bit and work some angles with it. The last fairway driver I've got here is a Lucid Maverick. Picked up the Maverick with the idea of using it for tunnel shots, really, and it works great. I don't have to put a lot behind it. It'll come up, it'll just ride straight, flat, just go straight down these nice tunnels. We've got a handful of them in the Casey area that, this is what I had in mind when it came out. It just, it holds those tunnel shots nice and straight for me, nice and true. Not much fade at the end, just kind of a nice light fade in, straight finish for me. If I really get behind it, I can get it to turn out and just hold a turn. A little bit, a little bit more subtle than what the Freedom does, but it just holds that turn. Um, and again, playing with the angles, I can get it to do a lot of different things. So I love the Maverick. Move into the mid ranges here. I've got a Lucid Patrol. The Patrol is something that, typically when I've got a shot that needs to move left to right, I'll go with my flick. But it's harder for me to control a hyzer line with my flick. A lot of times I'll end up putting it too high, or I just can't quite dial that in yet. So if it's a shorter left to right shot and I'm really looking to get more of a gradual turn around the corner, I'll reach for this Patrol, and I can just pop it out there flat, give it some decent juice, and it'll just turn right around those corners for me. I don't have to worry about so much, hitting the right angle with my forehand hyzer or anything like that. And usually with my forehand, I've got to get it out straight before it'll break to the right. So Patrol really works for me on those shorter left to right shots. Next up here is one of my favorite discs I've ever thrown. I've got a Moonshine EMAC Truth. This thing, I love the EMAC Truth. This Moonshine plastic is great. I can get behind this, and it'll come up flat, and it'll get just a little bit of turn out of it, but it holds pretty straight. And then when it fades, it doesn't come back to the left real hard. It's just a nice soft finish forward. It'll hold a hyzer line. It'll hold an Anheuser line. It's just a really controllable mid-range, and it goes far for mid-range. I love the EMAC Truth. Next in line here is the Westside Pine. Pick that up. It'll hold really straight, and it'll get out there nice and far, and then it'll fade. Pretty substantial fade, not super heavy, but if I really get behind it, I can get maybe just a touch of turn out of it before it'll fade back in. But it's nice and glidey. It's just a great disc when I want to make sure that I can get a solid fade out of it. Next in line is a Lucid X Verdict. Just recently. I just started throwing the Verdict probably about, I'd say 4 months ago. And the first one I threw was a Lucid, and then I picked up the Lucid X version, and I typically get pretty close to the same fade out of it. As far as stability, I think they're pretty close to the same, but I think the Lucid X is just a little bit more glide. It was typically getting about 35 feet farther than the Lucid was for me. But, I can really get behind this, and it'll hold straight, it'll hold true, and then it'll just give me a solid fade. Another disc that I know I can get behind, it'll come out. If I put a little bit of an Anheuser line on it, it'll fade out, it'll flatten out, and then it'll come back. If I put the hyzer on it, it holds that. But it's something that I can get behind quite a bit more than, like, say, my EMAC Truth or my Pine. I know it's not going to turn right very much at all, and I can get some pretty good distance out of it. But it's definitely in there for those just straight left fade shots. Just something that really gets down there for me. Next one I got here is my Beef. Got my Soft Justice. I love these things. Obviously, if you've thrown a Soft Justice, you know what they're for. Just a fantastic upshot disc. That soft plastic really helps keep it from skipping too much. And when you throw a Justice, you know it's gonna fade. So it's great in the wind. I don't have to worry about where it's gonna go. When I throw it, I know it's gonna come out. It's gonna fade. Put it on a flick, it's gonna come out. It's gonna fade. It's just super reliable. Just a great disc. Right now we're gonna move into, well, I guess it's still technically a mid-range, but I got a Lucid Suspect here. The Suspect is really kind of a longer distance upshot disc for me. I really consider it kind of a short range EMAC Truth, but it's something that I can put a little bit behind it, and it holds real straight, and then I get similar fade to like an EMAC Truth, maybe a little bit more than that, but just another reliable disc for me, just on a everyday upshot from maybe around 150 feet. It's I want to make sure that I'm going to get it out there straight and get a nice little fade to the left. Little bit of a flick behind it. Again, it just holds straight. Just a nice smooth fade. Nothing real heavy. But I know where it's going to turn. So then we'll go to putters. I'll start with some throwing putters here. I've got a Lucid Judge here. Typically, I actually just put this one in the bag. Typically I've been throwing fluid Judges. I got one of them back here. That's usually what I've got in there, is a fluid Judge. I just recently swapped it out for that Lucid. They usually hold pretty close to the same line. The fluid's probably a little bit more overstable for me, but they're pretty comparable. And I really just kind of prefer the feel of that fluid Judge as opposed to the Lucid plastic, especially when it's cold. But I just recently put this one in there. I still like the Lucid plastic, especially in the summer. I'll use the Lucid plastic as opposed to the fluid, because sometimes the fluid just feels a little bit too floppy for me when it heats up. But I'll use the Judge as a short range upshot, just something that I can. It's point and shoot, Obviously, I'm not going to put a whole lot behind it on an upshot, but I love throwing the Judge off the tee. If there's a shot where I just want it nice and smooth, just maybe a 200-foot hole or something like that, nice little tunnel, or a downhill shot, something like that, I'll pull out the Judge. Just a nice smooth backhand, dead straight, not much fade. It just holds straight. I love it. It's just a perfect point and shoot, straight at the basket disc. Then we'll move on. I've got a Lucid Slammer. That's something that I will throw it off the tee. Again, it's a up shot disc for me. Some people could question why I carry a Suspect and a Slammer. The Slammer seems to be a little bit more overstable, just a touch, but it feels a little more floaty for me. It definitely doesn't skip as much as the Suspect will, but again, it's just something that I can work lines with a little bit better than I can with the Suspect, I guess. Now off the tee, I can put a little bit more behind it than I can with the Judge. I know that it's gonna fade back. It's not gonna just turn and burn on me. So something that if I gotta put something behind it off the tee, I'll be reaching for my Slammer. And then my putting putters. I've got a few back here. First, I got my my babies, my Blend Wardens. Oh, I love my Blend Wardens. Just feels fantastic in the hand. No other putter, you know, that I've been able to get a hold of. It just comes out clean. It's just a great disc for me. And then when it's really cold, I'll move and get the soft Wardens. Again, gives me the same feel in the hand. Typically when it's cold, it stiffens up just a little bit, and it feels pretty close to what the Blend does. But again, Wardens, man. And then if there's a lot of wind, longer putts, I'll reach for my Blend Slammer. I just like the feel of the Blend plastic for putting. I know I've got a Lucid Slammer in here too, but I don't know. It's probably more mental than anything. You know, I just when I'm putting, I started putting with the Blend plastic, and that's what's in my head. I can't get the feel of putting with anything but like a Blend plastic, or the classic plastic soft, obviously. But anyway, that's what I've got in my bag. Go over a couple little items here. Obviously got my dynamic discs, backpack cart, got the Ranger bag in there. Got a nice little ground pie, little kneeling disc here. Nice, and not a lot of padding to it, but nice and flexible. It'll tuck in your pocket, easy to carry around. Towels. Got my Team Truly Unique Mini clipboard. Good stuff there. I made some modifications there. Got the PVC bottle holders. Got my GBO sniper bag on here for an extra baggage, extra little putter pouch or whatnot. And then that's my typical tournament setup there with the cart and the Ranger bag in there. If it's real hilly, I'll pull that Ranger bag out of there. And then if I'm just playing a casual round, I typically keep this Latitude core bag. It just kind of stays in my trunk, and that way I'm good to go pretty much any time. So, well, anyway, I appreciate you watching. Good luck with the 2019 season, and we'll talk to you later. Team Warden, baby.